Today we're up at Orchill Coarse Fishery in Octorado, and if you're wondering if it's worth a visit, here's everything you need to know. Now, parking and access here at Orchill are absolutely brilliant. Whether you want to park right by your peg or you want to park a little bit further away and fish away from the car, you've got both options here. So here at Orchill, we have multiple lake choices. I'm currently stood on the bridge that crosses over the Outer Snake, which is a big expanse of water that runs all the way around the Inner Snake. Now, I love the Inner Snake. I feel like I always have a good day's fishing on there. That's not to say I don't have good days fishing on the Outer Snake. I just have a special preference for the Inner Snake, that everyone's a bit like that. We all have that lake or that peg that we just go to if it's free. Now, there's good fish in both. In the Outer Snake, I do feel like the stamp is a little bit smaller than the Inner Snake, but that's not to say there isn't low doubles in the Outer Snake. I've had plenty fish over £10 from the Inner Snake, just fishing super simple tactics, which we'll get onto in a minute. Then we have Alex's Pond, which is more your typical match style pool. It's what you'd expect to find pole anglers on, but there's always people on there fishing with rods and catching fish. And then we have Midton, which is more a specimen lake. There's bigger fish in there, there's not as many fish in there, and it is, I'm not going to say a harder day's fishing, but you do have to put a little bit more effort into the way that you fish. There is a little bit of weed in there, and I'm not a carp angler. I don't really understand the tactics, so I don't want to sit here and say do this and do this. But if you know how to combat things like weed and maybe a trickier bottom to fish on, it's always worth a shot, just for that special fish. So the general go-to tactics I would fish here, on the inner and the outer snake, I would fish with a method feeder and even a pellet waggler. Now, bomb and pellet also works very well if you just want to kind of go up and down along your far bank. You're just picking off those odd fish as they move along, but I do find a bit of feed where you want to fish does bring those carp in. 2mm micros seem to work very well for me here, but a 50-50 mix of micros and ground bait can also be an absolute game changer. I find that catapulting pellets, specifically 8mm, tends to make a big difference. If you want to catapult them over the top of where you feed in, the noise, it just seems to bring fish in, which is something that we know works in fishing. Pellet waggler is a bit of an odd one for this type of lake, especially on the outer snake, because it's a snake lake. It's only about 16 metres with the odd peg closer to 18 to the far bank. Pellet waggler's not typically the thing you'd pull out of the bag, but it does work very, very well here, and I have a video of that on my YouTube. Now on Midton, I'm not so sure of the tactics that work. It is more your carp style fishing, and that's not where I don't want to say expertise because I'm in no way an expert in fishing, but that's not where my knowledge is. I don't really have a clue, but I know that it fishes well. It is a bit weedy, so it's worth using a rig that's going to help you not get caught up in the weeds and keep your bait maybe just a little bit off the bottom. The pole works well on the inner and outer snake. On the inner snake, I have been made aware that there is a gravel bar, so there is a shallower part. If you can find it on the pole or on the rod, I've been told there's fish to catch on there. And it's the same baits, pellets, ground bait, expanders, sweet corn works really well here, so it's always worth a shot. Down on Alex's Pond, you have a couple of options because it is more your pole style lake. It's more your match style and your typical commercial. Pole to the far bank seems to work well if you want to catch carp. Same down your edges. I've had some big fish down the edges in Alex. Down in the middle, in that deeper water on the bottom of the slopes, can also work well, and it's just your typical snake lake tactics. But a lot of people go down there and fish their rods and have very successful days as well. Now in the winter, this place fishes a little bit different to how it would at this time of year. At this time of year, you can just set up on one peg and go about your day's fishing. You get the typical quiet times of the day and the better times of the day, which tend to be early morning, and right as we get to, I'd say early evening, around kind of 3 o'clock, things tend to pick up. But in the winter, it can be a harder day's fishing, and that's not because of the fishery, it's because it's a snake lake. And fishing snake lakes in the winter can be really, really difficult. You catch a fish from one peg and they're all going to move to a different peg. And because it's a snake lake and in the winter it doesn't tend to be as busy, there's no one on the other side of you to push those fish back down your direction. So I like to come up here really, really light in the winter with a deck chair, a rod and an unhooking mat, and I will just go around the pool as long as it's empty enough and it's not too busy, because you do have to be considerate of the other anglers. And I like to try and pick off fish. You find one or two, then you move. You find another one or two, and then you move. And I've had some amazing days fishing like that, which are also posted on my YouTube channel. It's such a nice place to sit. I don't think it matters what time of year it is and what the weather is. This place just always looks beautiful. Now for me, Orchill holds a special place in my heart, and it's because this was the first place I ever went coarse fishing. Now I'm going to put some photos up, but you have to remember this was a very long time ago. So I look just a little bit different now. But we came up here with some deck chairs, some very, very cheap feeder rods. We didn't have a clue what we were doing, and we would just chuck our method feeders out to the middle and hope for the best. And I still remember the feeling of when that rod went round for the first time. And I hooked into my very first carp and I lost it. But that day was an absolutely brilliant day's fishing. We caught fish all day, non-stop, and since then I haven't put a rod down. But if it was my first visit here to Orchill, I would definitely start on the inner snake, because I just tend to feel like the fish are bulled up in a much tighter area, so there's more room for error. Should you make a mistake, should you maybe just not be fishing the correct method that day, you are still more likely to catch because there's less water to cover. So if it was my first time here, I'd start on the inner snake, try and pick a peg with as much open water as possible and cast around it in a clockwise motion. You will catch a fish, so it's always worth trying that. But one thing that I really, really like about Orchill is the trout lake, which feels weird to say as a coarse and match angler. But the trout lake here has to be one of the most stunning, if not the most stunning trout lake I have ever seen. And from what I've been told, I've never fished it personally, it fishes very, very well. So if you're into that as well, it's always worth checking that out, because it is, in my opinion, that's how trout fishing should look. So I didn't want to leave without saying a huge thank you to everyone for watching. If you want to stay up to date with any future posts, or you want to follow me around as I go to all the commercial fisheries and general coarse fisheries in Scotland, a like or a subscribe will keep you up to date with all of that. I hope you've enjoyed this walk around through Orchill Coarse Fishery. I'm currently sat at the next venue, just giving you a little sneak peek. Now I'm not going to tell anyone where I am, but if you can guess, put it down below in the comments. And if there's anywhere else you want me to visit, let me know down below as well. Huge thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.